necklace, you'll need a briolette, and this beautiful green gemstone briolette is 9 millimeters by 12 millimeters faceted, and it's drilled this way through the briolette. And you'll need 10 little pearls. These are 4 millimeter pearls. You'll also need a gold ring. This is like a connector ring. It's 16 millimeters in diameter. And we're going to use some pearl chain, this very delicate little pearl chain. So pretty. This is a 2-inch piece of pearl chain. We're going to put it all together on an already made necklace. This is a 19-inch necklace, gold chain with a toggle clasp. And we're going to use 24 gauge wire in gold. And for tools, we're going to use round nose pliers and wire cutters. To make the necklace, the first thing we're going to do is cut a piece of the 24 gauge wire. This is a 3-inch piece that I already cut. And we're going to use it to make a pendant out of our briolette. This is our beautiful faceted briolette. And we're going to just feed our gold wire through there. And I'm going to go about halfway down the wire. And I'm going to make a wrap loop at the top of this briolette. And I'm going to loop it into our pearl chain so it will hang from the pearl chain. So to do that, I'm going to go halfway down the wire. I'm going to fold these wires up over the top of the briolette. This is like a little triangle I'm making up here, like that. And then I want one of these wires to go straight up. So I'm bending it, just putting my fingernail at the top, and I'm pulling that straight up out of the briolette. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the second wire around that neck 2 times. And it can be easier to hold the briolette with your pliers if you want, so that you can get a nice tight wrap. I'm going to just give it a little elbow grease to go around like that. And then I'm going to trim this little piece here. Got my wire cutters here. I'm just going to give that a little trim. And then I'm going to make another loop at the top of this wire. So to do that, I grasp the wire with the top tiny part of the round nose pliers. I'm going to bend that wire over 90 degrees. And then I'm going to take my pliers from this position and move them up to the top of that 90-degree bend. And I'm going to push that wire up over the top of the pliers. That's giving me a partial loop. So you can see it's a nice round shape, but it didn't go all the way around. So I'm going to put the bottom jaw in that loop so that I can go all the way around. Now I have a complete loop. But before I close that by doing the wraps, I'm going to feed on the end of this beautiful pearl chain. This pearl chain is so delicate. It comes like this with the pearls already in it. A little bit of wire work in between. I'm just going to slide that into the loop we made. And then I'm going to hold that loop across with the round nose pliers like that. And I'm going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to wrap the wire around 2 times. So that makes a little pendant out of our briolette. And I'm going to cut, whoops, I'm going to flip that over. You'll notice with wire cutters, there's a flat side and then a pointed side. We want to use the flat side closest to the project, and that makes a flat cut in the wire instead of a pointy cut. So I'm going to just trim off that little piece of wire. And there's our pendant. It's already looking very pretty. And now we want to attach this pearl chain, the top of it, to our ring, that pretty ring. We've got a little trick for this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut one of the links out of our pearl chain. I'm going to cut this right across that little loop at the bottom of the pearl chain. And I'm going to borrow this pearl out of the pearl chain. So I'm going to cut the wire away from it and just slide that little pearl off. And then I'm going to make this into a little bead connector. So to do that, I'm going to cut another piece of wire, probably about 2 or 3 inches. We always cut more wire than we need because you want to have a tail to pull on. It's very difficult to pull the wire around without that. So we're going to put that, make sure it fits on the wire, and it does. But before I make the connector, I want to make a little loop in one end. I'm going to come down about 1/3 of the way, and I'm going to make a 90-degree bend in the wire, just like we did before. Go to the top of that bend like we did before. I want this to be a smaller loop, so I'm going out to the tip of my pliers. I'm going to bend that around and then reposition my pliers so the bottom jaw is in there so I can pull this all the way around like that. And I'm going to use this end to connect to my pearl chain. So that's why I wanted to make it a small loop so it'll kind of blend in with the delicate nature of the pearl chain. Now I can wrap that loop just like we did before. I'm going to hold that loop across and I'm going to pull this tail around. I ended up with a very short tail right after I said not to give yourself a short tail. See how hard it is to pull that tail around when it's that short? Use the pliers for that. So give yourself more room than I did. And I'm going to trim that little piece off. And now we can add the pearl to our wire. And it looks like it was just part of the original pearl chain because it's that same pearl. I'll make another wrap loop in the top now. Just pinch right above that little pearl. Make a 90-degree bend like we did before. Reposition to the top of the bend. I'm still out here at the end of the pliers, so it'll be a small loop when I push this over. And I'm repositioning the bottom of the pliers in there so I can finish the loop and make it come all the way around. And I need this loop to actually fit on this ring. It might need to be a little bigger than that now that I look at it. I'm just going to back the loop out a little bit so it's a little bit bigger now. And pull this a little tighter so it's nice and round like we want it. And see if that ring fits. So you'll want to make sure that the loop you make at this end isn't tiny because it needs to fit around that ring. I forgot that. But that's nice. Now you want to have a little movement there so you don't want to be too tight. So now that that's around there, I can finish the wrapped loop. So I'm going to grasp across the wires like that. And then I'm going to pull this tail around 2 times. And fit that in there. Just like that. And now I can trim that wire with the flat side of my chain nose pliers, or my wire cutter, sorry. And then if you have any little tails sticking out like this, I have a little bit of a tail here, you can just use the end of your round nose pliers to press that down. Just like that. There we go. Isn't that fun? Beautiful. So now we could just put this onto our chain. This is a necklace that we bought, a chain with the clasp already attached, 19 inches. You can get any length you want. And we could just slide this on, and that is very pretty. But we wanted to do a kind of special connector and a little special trick here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut our necklace in half. So I'm going to put the ends together like that and run the chain side by side down to find the center. So here's our center. And I'm just going to cut one of the lengths. That's how you cut chain to make chain lengths, the length you want it. You just cut through one of the links. And this is kind of a thicker chain, so I'm going to give it a little elbow grease to cut it. And it just breaks one of the links in the chain. So now we've got 2 pieces. They're the same length, pretty much. And we're going to make a little connector using these pearls. So to do that, it's the same kind of wire work. I'm going to cut a piece of the 24 gauge wire, a little bit longer than before, about 4 or 5 inches. And I'm going to come down about 1/3 of the way. I'm going to make a 90-degree bend like we did before. And I'm going to reposition to the top so I can make a loop there. This loop is going to go around our ring, so I'm going to remember this time to make it bigger. I'm going to go to the middle part. Loops at the end are tiny, way up here they're big. I'm going to go right to the middle. I'm going to push that around the top jaw, reposition to the bottom jaw just so I can bring that wire all the way around. And now I'm going to slide our ring in there. And this is only a little bit tricky because it's got a crisscross where the wires are crisscrossed, and you have to kind of slide it past that crisscross. There it goes. So now that that's connected, I can make another wrapped loop. It's all wrapped loops in this project. So I'm going to take the tail there and bend it around and pull it around that neck 2 times, just like we did before. and then trim it with the wire cutters. And now we're going to add 5 of these beautiful little pearls. These are 4mm pearls, and we chose them because they match the pearl chain. Of course, the pearls on the pearl chain are tiny. We wanted a little bit more visual weight up here at the top of the necklace, so we chose a little bit bigger pearls. I'm going to put 5 pearls there. Isn't that gorgeous? And then I'm going to make another wrap loop at the top here, connecting to half of our chain, half of our necklace. I'm going to pinch just like I did before, 90-degree bend, reposition to the top of that bend so that I can make a partial loop over the top jaw, reposition to the bottom and pull that around. So I've got a loop there at the top. And then before I close that loop with my wraps, I'm feeding on the end of the necklace. So the necklace has part of the clasp on one piece of the chain, and then this is the end that we cut. And if you don't have a necklace and just want to use chain, you can just use chain and put your own clasp on it. And you can use any kind of clasp you want. I'm repositioning this because I'm right-handed. I like to use the pliers in my right hand. So when it's over like this, it's the wrong way for me to do my wraps. So remember, you can always just reposition your work so that it's most comfortable for you and how you work. Now we've got that connected. I'm going to take that tail of the wire and make my wrapped loop. So we already made the loop, and now we're making the wraps. See how much easier it is with a long tail like this to pull that around. So the wire is not expensive, so it's much easier to make it long. I trim that piece, and that's 1/2 of our necklace connector. So pretty. And then we're just going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to do the same activity. We're going to cut about a 4 or 5 inch piece of wire. This is our 24 gauge gold wire. We made sure it fit through the pearls. Pearls sometimes have very small holes, so you want to make sure your wire fits through the pearls. So I'm going to come down about 1/3 of the way, make that 90-degree bend, reposition to the top. I'm making this loop a little bit bigger because it's going to go around our ring, so I'm up at the halfway point on the pliers. Reposition the pliers to the bottom jaw so I can get a complete loop there. And then before I wrap it, I want to make sure I remember to put in our ring. So I'm just going to nestle this up through that little crisscross. There we go. And now I can grasp. I misshaped my loop a little bit there. That's fixed. One part goes straight. This will have the pearls on it, and then this is the part that's going to come around and make our wraps. We like to do 2 wraps. It just looks nice. You can do 1 or 3. It's up to you. We tend to do 2. So there's our little tail that I cut off. And now I want to add 5 pearls, just like we did before. So there's our pearl connector. And I'm going to use the round nose pliers again to make another wrapped loop. This one doesn't have to be quite as big. I make a 90-degree bend, reposition to the top of the bend, and push that on around to make a loop. I want to finish the loop by coming around like that. And then we just take that other end of the chain where we cut the necklace in half and feed it on the last link. Just like that. Slip it into that loop. And then I can hold that loop across with the pliers and then bring that tail around 2 times. And then just trim that with my wire cutters. If you have a little tail like that, you can just press it down. We always do that at the end when we finish a project. We'll look at it a little more closely and see if there are any little ends like this to trim and push down. So now we've added this beautiful pearl connectors to the chain, and that's how we make this long teardrop necklace.